Episode 48, talking with Michael Goldstein about the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute and more.
Interested in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is a very vague concept to a lot of people.
Need to know more about cryptocurrency?
We're going to talk about the basics. This is something that people just have no idea about what crypto is.
How about buying, selling, and mining?
Tony, I think that's one of the things that's going to make us a little different from some other shows.
We're getting our hands dirty.
Then listen to Gary Leland and Tony Sakala, better known as the Crypto Cousins, on the Crypto Cousins podcast. This week's price.
This week's price in Bitcoin, $6,734. That's down $675.28, or 9.2% over the last 7 days. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the show. Gary Leland here.
And this is Tony Sakala.
And we are the Crypto Cousins. Hey, we've had a pretty full week here going already, Tony.
Well, we've got a lot going on. We've been on the radio, hosting our own radio show.
The real radio.
Real radio. Radio that goes out to the airwaves and goes out all the way to Pluto. Just keeps going. There's nothing to stop those radio waves from going to Alpha Centauri in 4 years.
So there's someone on another planet listening to our episode yesterday on iHeartRadio.
Someone will be in the distant future.
We'll be dead by the time those radio waves get there. You do realize that, Tony, right?
Well, it depends on how far out the planet is.
Yeah. I still think we'd be dead. It's a lot slower than...
I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful I've got another 5 decades.
But we were on the CEO Money Show. We hosted that yesterday. We were the guest host on iHeartRadio, and we're doing that again today. And that was kind of interesting compared to doing our podcast. First of all, we're not used to being in the same studio, right?
That's right. Exactly. I had to comb my hair. I had to get dressed. There was a lot of things I had to do yesterday that I'm not used to doing.
There were people coming and going. Some lady in a room with a window holding up signs that said 2 minutes, 1 minute. I mean, there was a lot of stuff to keep up with compared to our normal just lay back in my chair here.
Yeah, it was trial by fire. I mean, it's like, here you go. You're hosting a radio show, and we got about 3 minutes of training.
Yeah, and the best part is this one guy we bring on, and he's supposed to talk 3 minutes about something, and then when he's through, he's supposed to be done, and we go to the next segment. So when he's through, instead of saying something like, thanks for having me, or something, he goes, you have any questions? Well, Tony and I hadn't even listened to what he said.
We were thinking about what, you say, what are you going to say next? We were thinking about what are we going to say next?
We were thinking about how it was only 3 minutes he was talking, so it was more like a commercial, I felt like. So I was like all prepared to bring on the next person. I didn't want to mess up on that with this being our first show. And I think you were thinking the same thing. We got to be ready for that next person.
Uh-huh. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking? It was like my mouth was open. And
I pointed at you, Tony. I was like, you take it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you were listening, Tony, right? Yeah, I was like,
But welcome to the show. We're having a lot of stuff. We're on a TV show Friday. So even though Bitcoin price may be dropping, the Crypto Cousins price is rising. So we got a lot going on here, Tony.
We're on TV on Friday?
Yeah, on Vasquez's show.
Oh, the launch. Launch.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So, hey, Tony, now I saw this morning. This was announced yesterday, but we were so busy. I didn't see it announced. So this morning I saw on my Twitter feed about Ethereum Classic. Coinbase announced they're the next coin on Coinbase. What?
ETC. Well,
what's the scoop?
Well, here's my prediction. Some of the insiders over there at the Coinbase Mafia, they must have a lot of ETC.
You are always thinking evil.
Hey, I'm just going with human nature. Someone cut a deal.
Someone's got a lot of ETC they got to get rid of, is what you're saying.
I'm thinking, hey, it's a chance to make a fortune.
I would have never picked that as the next coin. Well, I didn't pick it as the next coin because you know what I picked. And so I would have, but no matter what I picked, I wouldn't have picked Ethereum Classic.
No. Well, we like the privacy coins. We're a big fan of John McAfee, and he's a big fan of the privacy coins, and he's pushing Bitcoin private these days. If you've seen his Twitter feed, people are creating memes with him, with like in superhero outfits and promoting the Bitcoin private.
Have you seen, I was looking at the Facebook group the other day, and if you're not in our Facebook group, you need to join that. Just go to Facebook and search Crypto Cousins. We have a page in our group, but you really need to be in the group. And they were talking the other day about the movie he's in, about him on Netflix. Have you seen that? Gringo?
It's out already? It's out? Oh, no. Really? I thought they were making a movie and Johnny Depp was going to play him.
No, this is not. This is more of a...
This is one that's already out.
It's like a documentary about his life.
Oh, I have to check that out.
Yeah, you really need to check that out. It is kind of mind-opening. It's kind of like, this is one crazy dude. I mean, real crazy dude. I mean, you really need to check that out. I checked it out and I was like, oh my gosh.
This is cousin Sean.
Well, you may want to kick him out of the family tree after you see this show. But I'll leave that up to you. But the show is Gringo, if anyone wants to check that out.
I'll look that up.
Hey, and also, this is show 48. Episode 50 is coming up next week because we're doing a show Thursday, which would be 49. We need to figure out something for episode 50.
Well, we should buy a case of champagne and celebrate with a big party.
So, like at 8 in the morning,
we'll start popping champagne. Oh, okay, mimosas. We'll make it mimosas.
Okay.
For you, me, and the whole crew here.
Okay, so there's two of us. We don't have the girl in the window with the numbers or the person bringing in the next guest.
Or someone bringing us coffee.
Yeah, so we have nothing. We have a pretty slim crew here.
We're a skeleton crew.
Hey, I also want to make sure if you have any questions or comments, which we usually like to play on the show, you can give us a call with voice questions at 747-777-9471 or email us at thecryptocousins@gmail.com. But because of the length of the interview, we're not going to get into that today. But today's show is Michael Goldstein, and he's coming to speak at BitBlock Boom, our conference next month, Tony. And so I thought he'd make a good guest since the conference is coming up. And I thought we could tell people.
We're excited to have both members of the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute out next month. And the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, if you don't know, is a group of people who are collecting the works of Satoshi Nakamoto and preserving them because they're on different websites, on different email servers and different forums. And they're creating an archive of that because you don't know what these other sites are going to do, if they'll be around in 10, 20, 100 years. So it's a great idea to preserve those original emails. He's got emails back and forth with Hal Finney, the late Hal Finney, who was helping him create. And it's a great place to learn about Bitcoin. And they also have a blog, which they post current articles about blockchain, Bitcoin, its governance, and how Bitcoin is changing over time as people add different Bitcoin improvement protocols to Bitcoin.
Well, that's the institute there. And Tony said both of those are coming to BitBlock Boom, which is located at bitblockboom.com, and it's on July the 14th. Give us a couple other speakers that we have coming, Tony.
Well, besides Pierre Richard and Michael Goldstein, we're bringing in the author of the Bitcoin Standard, Saifedean Ammous. And he wrote this book recently. It was published by Wiley, and he's on a book tour in Europe at the moment. And he'll be here in Texas to do a talk and a book signing. The Bitcoin Standard is the idea that the gold standard had been how we have used money for thousands of years. And then in the turn of the century, we went to the fiat money idea where people just make a currency by fiat, by decree. The government says this is the money. And at first they make believe it's backed by gold, by something that has lasting value. But then they signed away that and started printing their own. And just out of control inflation, and you see it in all countries around the world, Argentina, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Greece. They all have these money problems because monetary policy, the Keynesian money policy is horrible. I'm not going to give away the whole book. We could talk for hours about it, but
okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Saifedean is going to be here talking about money and the Bitcoin standard, sort of the idea of beyond the gold standard. And it's a fascinating book, and it's going to be a fascinating talk.
And then
as well,
we have
Tor Demeester is an economist and Bitcoin expert. He has been recommending Bitcoin since it was $5.
Wow.
So, yeah, the people who get his newsletter, his investing newsletter, are very happy with him.
And those are just a few of the people we have. So, like I said, go check that out at bitblockboom.com. But we also have a contest going.
Yes, we do.
Every week. And then the next week, we started it last week. So today we're going to announce this week's winners. And to enter the contest for next week, which is for 2 tickets to BitBlockBoom, you have to tweet about BitBlockBoom. Use the hashtag BitBlockBoom and an image from bitblockboom.com. That's it. You have to just tweet about it, hashtag it, and use an image and include the link, bitblockboom.com. I forgot that. So is that it, Tony?
I think you got it. Since you made the rules, you know.
Okay, well, that's the rules. We want to hashtag. If you don't put a hashtag, we're not going to know you did it. So you definitely
we can't find it.
You definitely want to do that one, right? Hashtag BitBlockBoom. If you didn't do a link, well, no one's going to find it. So that's not going to really help anything. And if you don't do an image, no one's going to see it, probably. So these
we're kind of hard ass about all this.
Yeah, it's just the basic things. But what we do is I look at them and I just choose one. This week I just picked one, and I picked one I thought used the best looking image, to be honest with you. But there's no telling what I'll do next week. That's what I did this week. So the winner for 2 tickets this week was at Bottom Shelf BTC.
Nice.
At Bottom Shelf BTC.
That's a great name.
That is a great name. And to claim your tickets, you need to send Tony a text, or not a text, a tweet from your account. So we know it's you.
Exactly.
That way no one can steal his ticket. So at Bottom Shelf BTC, send at Tony Sakala a message saying, "Where's my tickets?"
Fantastic. We'll get that sorted out. Get you your tickets.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody gets a discount, all the cousins, Tony.
Oh, absolutely. We want to help out the cousins.
So if you didn't win, and if you don't win, if you use the code cousins, when you buy your tickets, you'll receive 50% off the price of tickets.
So there you go. Listening to us, you've just made a lot of money for yourself.
Yeah, you made enough that you can buy a couple Satoshis there on what we saved you.
Yes.
Get you
a couple million Satoshis.
And I want to thank also Crypto Unicorn Money for being our platinum sponsor at cryptounicorn.money.
Yes, Casey is also going to be speaking, and he was on our show yesterday, and we could talk to Casey for hours because
Tony, we can talk to anyone for hours.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean,
we're good. We're very big with the talking.
That's like me saying I like ice cream. I like everything.
Yes.
Well, let's get into the. Is there anything you wanted to cover before we get to Michael?
Just that Casey is running this amazing company that, I'm jumping into his Discord server and listening to what he has to say. You know, he goes beyond the masternodes and the staking. I mean, he's teaching people actually how to build these masternode servers and helping them to create them. So not only does he just host them, he's like us, like with our Ethan, we tell people how to build an Ethan miner if they want one. He's telling people how to actually build masternodes. So there's some great advice there. If you don't want to join a masternode, you can learn from Casey as well.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Casey. So now on today's show, we have Michael Goldstein.
But his friends call him Bitstein.
Bitstein. So Goldstein with the bit. Remove the gold and put the bow. I just got that.
Get that? Isn't that that's got the gold standard, the bit standard.
Yeah, I just got that just now. So he took the gold out of his name and replaced it with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So Bitstein.
He may change it. Maybe he'll change it legally.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, he's the founder and president of the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, and he's the co-host of the Noted Bitcoin podcast.
And that's noted with a D, not noted.
Noted.
Noted, like a Bitcoin node.
I just got that too. I'm kind of slow.
A lot of revelations today. Gary.
Yeah, I'm kind of slow here, aren't I? And the other one I'm really still not 100% getting, even though he explained it to us on the interview, is that he's resource related to all meat carnivore diet at justmeat.co.
Justmeat.co is a great resource because if you just eat meat, then you're going to be a beefy carnivore. You like that?
I get that. When we have the dinner Friday night, the Satoshi Nakamoto dinner, which him and Pierre Richard are hosting, I want to see if he eats anything on his plate beside the meat.
Yes, we're going to be watching closely.
I may have a hidden camera.
Yeah,
touches a salad or baked potato, or
we're going to report on it exactly.
And I bet not see any ice cream or anything coming that way.
Right.
But I guess we might as well get to the interview. Michael, if you're listening, we're giving you a hard time. You know that, right? But let's get to the interview with Michael, a.k.a. Bitstein. Michael, thanks for coming on the show. We're kind of excited to talk to you, not only because we think you're a really smart dude, but because we're getting ready to meet you and enjoy your company at a great steak dinner soon, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Thanks for coming to the show, though.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to finally talk to you.
Hello, Michael. This is Tony.
Michael, tell us, how did you get involved with Bitcoin? Tell us a little bit about your history in Bitcoin.
Well, I guess the best place to start is pre-Bitcoin. Starting in high school, I got deep into Austrian economics, reading the works of Ludwig von Mises and Hayek and Murray Rothbard and others. And from that, I had a very strong draw towards the idea of returning to the gold standard and having a sound money reinstated in society. And then in 2011 was when I first heard about Bitcoin. So this was sometime early college, sophomore year or so. My friend Daniel Krowitz had messaged me saying he found a new investment opportunity called Bitcoin. I looked it up and I installed it. I had Bitcoin running on my computer and nothing was happening. And I got bored, so I turned it off and deleted it and forgot about it. I think it was the next year or over the next year, news started coming out about a website called the Silk Road, which, as a very strong libertarian, despite not being interested in drugs myself, I was very excited about the idea that someone was using this technology to promote freedom in the world by creating an actual free market system that, even included arbitration and all that, while also using a currency that was not the dollar, is a market-based currency. That being said, I still had this feeling like Bitcoin was just something that was created out of thin air, and therefore, in my mind, it was tied to the word fiat, which I think is incorrect, but we can get to that. But that was one of my hangups, was I viewed it as a fiat currency. The real turning point was in late 2012. It was, I think, October 2012, late October. We had a libertarian group at the University of Texas called Libertarian Longhorns. And Cody Wilson of Defense Distributed had come to give a talk about his new project, which at the time, this, Defense Distributed had started. They put up a video about the so-called wiki weapon in July, and this was just October, so it only had been a couple months. There wasn't even a thing yet. It was still brewing as an idea, these 3D printable weapons. And he gave an incredible talk where he was just sort of actually just rambling about different ideas he was having about sort of the politics of revolution and like the symbolic nature of these things. And within that talk, he introduced us to the cypherpunks and crypto anarchists. He read to us the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto by Timothy May, which was originally written in, I believe, 1988. I had heard about sort of this notion of crypto anarchy, and I had always been sort of a fan of, say, WikiLeaks and Tor and some of these other projects, but they had never really been tied to a strictly libertarian worldview, as sort of I see it, as like a focus on private property and all of that. And so he was introducing that to us, and Timothy May is, was hardcore libertarian. I assume still is. And within this talk, sort of to round it all off, he was talking about the fact that given the internet, you can now use strong cryptography to communicate with whoever you want, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Given the internet, you can send potentially now we know it to be true. At the time, it was an idea, but send a gun to someone, or at the time, it was still true. You could send a physical object to someone via a CAD file or the files for 3D printing that. You just send the file and they send it to their printer, and then suddenly the piece of plastic is a reality, and you send that through the internet. And tied to that, he said, given the internet, you can also now send gold through the internet using Bitcoin. And it was in that moment, that very moment, that he described Bitcoin as gold through the internet, that it all immediately clicked for me. And I've been absolutely obsessed ever since.
So you went down a rabbit hole and you haven't seen daylight since.
No, I have not.
Yeah, so my libertarian roots really were the same sort of call to Bitcoin, because I really saw that it was the opportunity to transact, without the middleman, and that was very exciting to me. In fact, I went down to Austin for Liberty International. There's a big group of Liberty International down in Austin. And that was really my first experience hands-on with the libertarian groups.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that was your awakening moment in Bitcoin, I guess, is when you could actually relate it to gold. That was the key for you.
That's what it took, yes.
Yeah. So then you went and started the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute. I don't know that was the next thing you did, but that was a big thing you and Pierre Rochard, I think, are together, have started that, and I find that very interesting. And I want to jump to that comment. I know I'm jumping from one to the other, but we have a limited amount of time, and I think that's a very interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about, and I think we should spend a lot of time on that.
As far as the storyline, we then had a economics reading group called the Mises Circle, where we would get together and nerd out on different economic texts from Mises and Rothbard and all these other people. And after starting in late 2012, it quickly became the Bitcoin Circle, and basically every meeting was us just parsing through the economics of Bitcoin. And many of the articles that are on the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute we originally published on the Mises Circle website.
What does that stand for, Mises? I don't know
Mises.
That word.
Mises. It's a Austrian economist named Ludwig von Mises.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't familiar with that.
Who I consider an intellectual hero.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where it started. And then moving on, actually, to tie it into y'all's conference, sometime in, I'd like to say it was mid-2013, I met Tur de Meester for the first time, who will be speaking at the conference. And we had been joking about the fact that there's a Ludwig von Mises Institute where they collect the works of Mises as well as just general Austrian economics literature. And we joked about how it'd be cool to have the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute. And a couple months down the line, I went ahead and bought a domain and started throwing some links up. And that's how the Institute began. And my friends, Pierre Rochard and Daniel Krawitz, we had kind of been at the helm of the Mises Circle group. We teamed up as a way to sort of, collaborate on what kind of material should be going up on this.
Well, it's that certainly is the number one place where people look for the original source material for Satoshi's writings. So congratulations. It's really a fantastic site.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, so we have, for listeners who are not aware of this site, you can go to nakamotoinstitute.org. Some of the main sections, yes, there's we call it the Complete Satoshi. It's all of Satoshi's public writings, so forum posts, emails, as well as some of the early code. And then there's a section called the Literature section, which has quite a library of these original works by the cypherpunks and crypto anarchists. And for me, it's really revelatory because, I had been studying libertarianism and Austrian economics for many years, but reading the crypto anarchists, these guys, first of all, they totally got it. They understood libertarianism, But on top of that, they were actually describing the tools and methods by which you would actually be creating freedom in the world. And so there was this whole strain of thought that was both new ideas in how libertarianism works, but also methods and strategy. And for that, I'm ever grateful. People like Nick Szabo have had a tremendous impact on my intellectual influence, and building that website was sort of the way to do all of this digging into the rabbit hole. Find stuff and bring these works back to life. So much as some of them had sort of lost the light of day. And then we also have what we call the mempool, which is our blog, which has a lot of ideas in primarily Bitcoin economics.
Well, it's fantastic to see the literature, because when people think about Satoshi Nakamoto, they think it just came full right there in 2009. But there was this background that all the work that the giants, the shoulders of the giants that he stood on were all there, and it's great to see the history of it. It is a fantastic read, and I see you have the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto there on the site.
Yes, and I would say that influence is both implicit and explicit. So explicitly in the white paper, he refers to Adam Back and Wei Dai, and I believe there's a Nick Szabo reference, or he may have just mentioned that in one of the emails or forum posts. But even then, there's some stories about that some of those references not being in the original white paper, which suggests that perhaps he actually did not know about it. Which brings us to the implicit influences, which is just the fact that Bitcoin simply could not have existed without a lot of these ideas. And I think there was an article by Gwern on gwern.net, gwern.net. He's probably one of the most fascinating people on the internet. And he was talking about, what took so long for something like Bitcoin to exist. And he has this really nice little list of the technologies required for a Bitcoin system. You need everything from, the internet, peer-to-peer communication, stuff like ECDSA for digital signatures, Merkle trees, and all of this kind of stuff. And so because of that, even where Satoshi didn't, explicitly say, "Oh, I learned from so and so," it's still part of this, growing story of just the internet arising and cryptographic tools being developed that could be wielded in these new ways that allow us to forge new grounds for liberty.
So yeah, you could really argue that Bitcoin couldn't have been invented before all of those little pieces were put together. That is a fascinating website. Gwern.net is a rabbit hole in itself.
So while you're here at BitBlock Boom, or in Dallas next month for BitBlock Boom, you're speaking about everyone is a scammer.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting title.
Yes.
Could you go over what that is? I mean, I don't want you to do this presentation here, of course, but I thought your title was very interesting.
Yeah, so the title is "Everyone is Still a Scammer." I believe the subtitle I put was something like a Bitcoin maximalist guide to the world or something like that. Basically, the idea. So this talk is going to be heavily influenced by a popular article I wrote actually quite a while. It was like almost 4 years ago now. Time really flies, but and that article is called "Everyone's a Scammer," and the point of that article is to show how, given this idea that Bitcoin has a scarce supply and it's sound money, and people are going to adopt it to the point where it reaches this state of what we call hyper Bitcoinization. Like I do believe that Bitcoin will become the global reserve currency. Can you explain that word for any listeners that may not be familiar with Bitcoin hybridization? Oh, sure. So that was a term coined by Daniel Krowitz in an article with that title. It's basically a gradual a gradual adoption of Bitcoin that over time can accelerate to the point of monetizing Bitcoin at a rapid rate. So I'm trying to decide how deep to go into that, because there's many ideas packed in with regards to currency competition and the fact that a currency's network grows at an exponential rate. So as soon as a new person enters a currency, the value of that currency in a way doubles, based on Metcalfe's law is sort of a heuristic, although not necessarily a strict rule. And so because of that, in the margins, as people decide to even put, $100 in, or some people decide to go, big into Bitcoin, or people just starting to give Bitcoin mind space. I mean, think of all of the people who even hate Bitcoin, and yet because they hate Bitcoin, they can't stop thinking about it. It has already taken over their lives just as much as it's taken over mine, even if they don't like it. Given this, the sort of liquidity of the money just continues to grow, and because things are nonlinear, as Bitcoin grows, that means that the dollar shrinks as well, and we this plus stuff like speculative attacks, which Pierre has written about, can mean the demonetization of competing currencies and the rapid monetization of Bitcoin. And understanding that this is a potentiality is very important to understanding my article, because my article is sort of based on the assumption that this is a thing that can actually happen. And in fact, I would even argue that to some degree it really is already happening. As we're speaking, Bitcoin is at 6,000, and or a little over $6,000, and that's seen as like a massive kind of bear market or something. And yet a year ago, Bitcoin was it seemed to be in a bubble because it was at half the price. So the fact that the world keeps shifting the goalposts on what it means for Bitcoin to succeed just shows that Bitcoin is continuing to succeed. But given that, if you believe that Bitcoin is going to be the global reserve currency, that means that you have to imagine that Bitcoin can have the future value of, let's say $1 million to $10 million, and perhaps even more than that per coin. So given this, this presents the investor with the fact that a lot of people trying to get their hands on Bitcoins by selling things, by making investment offers and merchant adoption and all this, you have to stop and think if it's truly in your long-term interest. For some people, it might very well be in their long-term interest to give up some Bitcoins now because they just, really want, their Lambo or whatever it might be. And that was the whole purpose of getting money in the first place. So if you can get it now, then it fulfills that thing. But for other people, just because a merchant adopts Bitcoin doesn't mean that it's necessarily in your long-term interest to want to hand over Bitcoins to them. And likewise, just because someone makes an investment opportunity, one that can even perhaps do better than Bitcoin in the short term, doesn't mean that it's in your interest to be engaging in that. And so it's really a sort of a call for people to think more about their personal values and what they actually want in life, because this is a once in history opportunity with regards to this kind of wealth creation, that you shouldn't squander it on just a Lambo if there is more to life that you want.
It really comes back to Saifedean's premise that the time preference that you have on the world, if you can wait, if you believe, if you can hodl, if you can put off your preferences to a better future, then it only makes sense to hodl Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And a lot of people get tripped up by this, and this is some of the stuff I'm going into in the talk, because since the writing of that article, it's been 4 years now. A lot of people have thrown out new arguments against these sort of positions, and I want to sort of dismantle these straw men and think carefully about what these this situation really means for the investor. And one of them, for instance, is like, we're not saying that you have to only invest in Bitcoin forever and ever, and there's no reason to ever spend. It's merely that you should, like, the low time preference comes into play by really thinking about what it is you want and going for that, rather than just trying to get short-term benefits and signaling points, for instance, by just being able to show, oh, I spent money, I spent Bitcoins on this coffee, look at me. Well, that's nice, but does that actually serve in your self-interest?
Well, and it also it puts the idea of altcoins into a different light. If you think about the altcoin market as being seductively really trying to take your Bitcoin.
Yes, especially because if you look at most of these altcoins, they tend to use Bitcoin as their unit of account. So many of them, how is it doing against Bitcoin? And many of them, I've seen, plenty of internet discussion from altcoin traders who their main goal is to acquire more Bitcoins. And what that means is they're effectively Bitcoiners. They're just playing different investment games, and I mean, I see it just frankly just gambling, but they're investing in this way because they want more Bitcoins, and so it's not they really do just want your Bitcoins, and they're just trying to give you something that they think that you'll give it up for, and yeah, I just think it's extremely
the coin
important.
de jour, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, and I just think it's super important for people to take a step back and truly think about their values and what they want in life. Like I said, this is a once in history opportunity, and as the article talks about, there are no brakes on this train. It's not as though there's ever going to be a replay where you get to try again. This is your one chance, and so any Bitcoins, for instance, that someone acquires now, I mean, you have to think. Just a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, Bitcoin was what, a couple $100. Even now, like in its so-called bear market, it's 6,500 or plus or whatever. And so, given that, you can easily see how quickly it's going to become difficult to even acquire a whole Bitcoin. In fact, I remember back in the day. There was for instance, a homeless shelter, Jason's Outpost, that was doing a lot Sean's Outpost. Or was it one of those? I think it was Sean's Outpost, and the guy, Jason King, was the guy running it, and it was a Bitcoin based charity for helping homeless people, I believe, in the Tampa Bay area, and back in the day, people were giving whole Bitcoins to homeless people, which, of course, I appreciate the charity, but just to think of that shift, our grandkids, will be asking about Bitcoins or whatever. They'll be like amazed if someone has a whole Bitcoin. And meanwhile, it's like, back in my day, we were
right.
we were throwing whole Bitcoins at homeless people and
buying pizzas.
There were faucets online where Gavin Andreessen would just give you tons of whole Bitcoins just for free. And so, like, as this thing grows, like, there's no going back unless, there's another so-called bear market. But even when there's a bear market, it's not that it suddenly makes it super easy to get a whole Bitcoin. And so there's even a certain point where people who acquire Bitcoins now might never be able to sort of see the left side of the decimal point increase by anymore. That doesn't mean that they can't get more fabulously wealthy, but that just shows the nonlinear scale of this thing. And because of that, do you really want to give up one whole Bitcoin for anything at this moment? Considering, like, you might be you might create a successful company in the future and make tons of money and create so much wealth, and yet that might get you a whole Bitcoin. As opposed to now, where all you have to do is be able to find thousands of dollars and be able to give it in. Like there's a huge difference in scale there. And that should cause people to stop and think before they make any transactions on the Bitcoin network. Is this in my long-term interest?
It's like Tony's $6,000 pair of sunglasses.
Exactly. Exactly. People who have been in it a long time, we have that regret. We remember the days when there were faucets. I remember the days when there were faucets, and they're just giving it out like it was water.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't take... Mm-hmm.
I remember buying a T-shirt for a quarter of a Bitcoin. It was a Bitcoin T-shirt.
Wow, you have that framed somewhere?
Wow.
Well, I mean, at the time, it was $25, so it was a perfectly reasonable purchase. It was a cool Bitcoin T-shirt. But now that means that's $2,000. Well, sorry, like $1,000 or so dollars for that T-shirt. So maybe I should have bought it with dollars.
And potentially $250,000.
Right, exactly. So, people should really think. And like I said before, like for some people, there's, getting that Lambo, that might actually have been the reason that they wanted the money in the first place. In which case, spending that money is a perfectly reasonable thing. The purpose of money is because you want to hedge against future uncertainty. At this moment in time, you don't know what the best specific allocation of capital ought to be. So you hold a very liquid good that you can use to buy whatever you want in the future when you do figure it out. If you do already have it figured out, then it totally makes sense to just, spend the money and get what you want. But I don't think most of us have it figured out. And I think there's also sort of, in my personal, thing, and I think a lot of people, my personal life, and I think a lot of people have had the same feeling is, as you start to use Bitcoin as your sort of unit of account, where you're thinking in terms, it's like, well, I could buy this T-shirt for a quarter of a Bitcoin, but, in the future, I'm going to kind of regret it. When you start thinking in those terms, even just specifically that, you could have had more money had you not gotten the T-shirt. Like you were saying, Tony, this ties into Saif's stuff where it's like your time preference lowers and you kind of almost like don't even want this stuff, It's like, it goes from, oh, maybe I can hold off on the T-shirts. And then, once you're not even purchasing these things, many people even find that they don't even want these things at all, which is a tremendous shift in values. And I think one for the better, because thanks to basically our fiat system, we have a very consumerist society where we just buy things because, we think we need them. And it's not like if we saved money, it's going to actually get saved anyway. And this presents an opportunity to actually save the money, and we can actually envision better things to put that money to if we hold on to it. So
it breaks the indoctrination, basically, of this idea that we are consumers. You hear the word all the time. We are consumers. We are consumers. Consumer society. And so the idea that spending it today in an inflationary society makes more sense than hanging on to it, where next year it's worth 2% less. It's, I told my wife, I said, it's if you make $100,000 a year, at the end of the year in December, you might as well just take $2,000 and put it in a bonfire and burn it. It's gone.
Yeah.
But then you lose $4,000, Tony.
That's true. I knew you would see past that, Gary. Good point.
Yeah, and there's so much stuff that we really don't need. So yeah, this there's a common misconception that people think that a capitalist society is a consumerist society, but I think of the two as sort of opposed. You consume in a capitalist society. Everyone consumes things. You have to eat. You have to do all this stuff. But capitalism, to be a capitalist, is to be acquiring capital that you can put to use. Capital is tools that you can use to produce more things and create more wealth. And every time you're consuming, you're taking away your ability to create future wealth and more wealth. And so a capitalist society, if you want, at least for the capitalists, and Bitcoin's an opportunity for all of us to become, better capitalists. It sort of removes the consumption element, and we can think more in terms of productivity, not in the sense of just, efficiency and like wanting to work, but productivity in the sense of being able to get the most out of the resources we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in other words, a capitalist using the capital to build a factory, to build something that is going to generate something valuable for society in the future, as opposed to buying something that's consuming and having pleasure today.
Yeah, a junk piece of plastic that, keeps your attention for 5 minutes before you throw it in the trash.
The fidget spinner, for instance.
Yes.
I never did get those, to be honest with you. Not that it has anything to do with Bitcoin. But I still don't know. I still don't know what those were about. And my grandkids don't even like them, so I don't know who likes those. That's a deep rabbit hole there in itself you just went down.
I have a lot of rabbit holes to go down, so.
Well, we're getting near the end, and we talked a lot about Bitcoin, but we don't want to overlook the fact that you have an amazing website, justmeat.co.
And what is the connection with meat and Bitcoin? And let's talk about the Institute's dinner that you're having while you're at BitBlock.
Yes, okay.
Let's get all that in.
The meat thing, for people who don't know, I advocate a carnivore diet, eating only meat. You can go to my website, justmeat.co, for a plethora of resources on sort of the science, the evolution, the anthropology, the actual real person testimonials, all these things that kind of draw lines of evidence as to why this would be a good thing. That's another rabbit hole. Probably not. We don't have the time to go fully down that. But the connection between it, I guess I'll read my my now famous quote. It was even quoted by one of my arch nemesis, Paul Krugman, to his 4 million followers. Bitcoin is a revolt against fiat money, and an all-meat diet is a revolt against fiat food. And the idea there is just that there are a lot of food items that we eat today that, first of all, did not exist ever in history up until, a couple of decades ago. And I would argue that these foods also don't provide the nutrition that, things like meat and even, traditionally prepared dishes of other kinds can provide. And therefore, we should really just think of them as fiat, vegetable oils and added sugar and all of this stuff. None of it's actually nutritious. It's just pure caloric energy, if that, and it causes undue harm to human beings, and hence why we see such rapid rates of all sorts of diseases of civilization. And hopefully, because Bitcoin has this potential to increase our wealth and lower our time preferences, we'll think more about what kind of foods we need to put in our bodies to keep us healthy and strong sustainably into the long-term future.
And so the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute annual dinner, and I think this is the first annual dinner, right?
Yeah, this is the first time we've put one on. We thought...
That's at a steakhouse, of course.
Yes, absolutely. So we're doing that on July 13th, the night before the BitBlock Boom conference. And, we realized that I'm going to be there, Pierre's going to be there, Saifedean's going to be there. A lot of the gang was already going to be in town. Saif has been a good friend of us and the Institute for a long time now. The fact that Turtle as well, the fact that everyone's kind of there already, it seemed like a good time to put one of these together. And we're very excited. For those who want, I think there's still space. And for those who want to apply, there is unfortunately limited space, so we have to do applications. But you can go to nakamotoinstitute.org/events, fill out the form, and hopefully we can get back to you soon as to whether or not we can fit you in.
So we can go to that Friday night and enjoy a lot of networking, a lot of great meat, and then Saturday listen to you at BitBlock Boom, and then Sunday we have the Bitcoin brunch. So it's a kind of a full weekend there. And now this says you just said it, that you apply. So I applied, and I didn't get an email back. So was I not chosen, Michael? Tony got an email. Tony got an email back. I didn't get an email back. We were talking the other day, and he goes, "Oh, didn't you get?" I said, "What email? I hadn't gotten an email."
Yeah, I will have to check on that because that should not be the case.
Well, I thought maybe I didn't meet the qualifications. That's always possible.
When was the last time you ate a vegetable?
Gosh, I don't eat many vegetables. I get a hard time for not eating vegetables.
All right, so in that case, yeah, I mean, so there's really no excuse here.
If the vegetation is a qualification, I have got to be one of the most qualified people to go to this event.
There may have been some random broccoli on your Instagram feed, and
you would never see broccoli on my feed. That or okra, never.
I will have to look into that.
We were going to give you a hard time about that. We decided before you got on the show. We had decided that already.
I will look into that, and of course, anyone else who did apply and they
vegetables.
Feel free to email us, and we can help you figure things out. But I'm really excited about the journal. Like you said, it's the first one we've done, and it's really heartwarming just to see how many people were excited about coming and just enjoying an evening with us. I have this notoriety online, but really, like, I still think of myself as just kind of the snarky college kid, just shit posting and causing a ruckus online. Even though I'm a little older now, but that's still how I feel. So just that the things, the websites I've put up and the information that I've put out has brought tremendous value and insight to people. It's humbling and heartwarming, and I'm really I'm proud, but I'm also just grateful and thankful that I could bring that to people. So it's gonna be really great to meet people and get to enjoy the company, the HODL gang.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and we're really excited that y'all chose to do this kind of, I'm not going to say in conjunction with BitBlock Boom, because it's really not part of BitBlock Boom. This is your own deal, but we gave you a reason to get it together since all those people were coming. So we're really excited that that's happening.
Big thanks to y'all for the invites to speak at the conference. This is going to work out wonderfully.
Well, Gary and I have been to many ICO festivals, and we've seen a lot of conferences that, you walk down the aisle and it's a big shill fest. And it's not that these people don't believe in what they're doing. They do. I think that they're just, unfortunately, a little misguided, especially the people working the booths. And we thought, well, let's do something different. Let's get back to the roots. Let's bring in the people we respect the most. And so we're really humbled and grateful that you guys are coming out and doing this conference with us. It's really something that we're very grateful for. So thanks, Michael.
Yeah. What got me, Michael, about events when I got into crypto was I had never been to so many events where people paid to speak. Instead of the event going, hey, you have such great information, we want you to speak. And that was kind of new to me. And so on our event, no one, you see the lineup, no one's being paid to speak. No one's paying to speak. We turned away paid speakers, people who want to pay to speak. I mean,
right. And it sort of signals a certain something if you're having to pay instead of being invited. And also, I thank you guys because, it is important, the sort of Bitcoin maximalist position is often, a sort of sideshow, even though it's sort of one of the fundamental drivers of this whole thing. We do kind of deserve our own space to at least, others don't have to enjoy it, but we want to enjoy it and share our ideas with the people who want to hear them.
Exactly. Well, and to bring new members to our HODL gang.
Yes.
The HODL gang. We need a T-shirt for that. The HODL gang. Well, Michael, before we go, because we're getting over, and we never are on time, so don't worry about that, Michael.
We say 30 minutes, but
we've done that once in our life, I think. One time in our whole, and we're getting ready to hit 50 episodes. We've done it once, so we're not worried about going over. That's for sure. But before we do end this, I want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to bring up anything that we may have forgot to mention, or anything you just want to share with the audience, or how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, well, that's probably the most important thing here. So, the place that I'm mostly online is Twitter. So I welcome everyone to come follow me on Twitter at Bitstein, Bitstein. My DMs are open, so if you have any questions about Bitcoin or meat or anything like that, feel free to hit me up, and I try my best to get back to you. Sometimes it's, a little busy, so I'm unfortunately not able to get to everyone, but I try hard. So there's Twitter. Like I said, my website, so the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, you can visit that at nakamotoinstitute.org. And then the Meet website was justmeet.co. And my email address is on my Twitter bio as well, so you can hit me up there. And those are basically the easiest ways to get in touch. And of course, if you're ever in Austin, Texas, and you want to go get a steak or barbecue, it's hard for me to turn that down.
Well, fantastic. And one other thing, you and Pierre co-host the Noted Bitcoin podcast.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I don't know how I forget. So yes, we have a podcast as well, the Noted Bitcoin podcast, which is mostly technical geekery. We bring on a lot of developers to talk about what they're doing, but we also talk about sort of the economics and occasionally some current events. So you can find that at noted.org, as well as Noted Podcast on Twitter, and that's NODED.
Very good.
Well, fantastic.
Well, Tony, anything you want to ask him or add before we get out of here?
Well, we had a great time. We'll have to have you back on the show in the future to update us on what's going on, because you know how it is in Bitcoin. Every few months, it's a whole nother story.
It's impossible to keep up with. In fact, I don't know how people do altcoins, because I can't even keep up with Bitcoin alone.
Right? Fantastic. Thanks for being on the show, Michael.
Yeah, Michael.
Thank you so much for the invite. I had a great time.
We really appreciate it a lot. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I enjoyed this interview. I had a good time on this interview.
It was a far-ranging interview. We were talking about Bitcoins, and we were out on the range with the cows.
Out on the range with the cows. Yeah. So don't forget bitblockboom.com so you can come see Michael and everybody else we're having at the conference, which is going to be a great conference to boot. So
it's going to be a great conference. You can watch these people on YouTube. You can read their tweets, but there's nothing like meeting someone in person and developing a relationship. So, it's like Bitcoin is in the early years, and imagine if in the early years, the computer years, you met Bill Gates. I was at a meetup and Bill Gates was talking a long time ago. I met some of the really amazing people in the computer field in the early days before Adobe was even a company.
Wow.
I was there. They had a booth, before they were a famous company. They had a booth right next to my booth when I was running a user group, the Macintosh user group. And we had a longer line than the Adobe booth.
Wow.
Because we were a user group and everybody knew who we were, but nobody knew who Adobe was.
Well,
so this is what you get an opportunity when you're in early. You're going to get to meet people who are movers and shakers, who are thought leaders in the field, and there are
going to be a lot of networking opportunities at this. So make sure you come. Make sure you check out this site. And also, I want to thank Casey again, our sponsor. Crypto Unicorn Money at cryptounicorn.money. And make sure and check out our YouTube pages, youtube.com/cryptocousins and youtube.com/4minutecrypto. And the big thanks to everybody who's been subscribing and leaving reviews on iTunes for us. That really is
thank
appreciated.
You. We love you.
I do love you.
I took the love
I know, you took my thing. That's my shtick there, Tony.
Nice.
But make sure, no matter how you like to listen to podcasts, check out subscribe at cryptocousins.com/subscribe. That page just has every way to subscribe, and it's cryptocousins.com/subscribe. Don't forget you can call and leave us messages or comments or questions.
Yes, I missed the messages and comments.
We haven't done one in a couple of weeks, and they're piling up. So call 747-777-9471. We want to get you involved. Tony, anything else you want to say before we get out of here? Because as normal, we're running over.
No. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. I love you.
Thanks for listening to the Crypto Cousins podcast. Please share this podcast with anyone you know that is interested in cryptocurrency. Your friends can subscribe on iTunes at cryptocousins.com/iTunes and on Android at cryptocousins.com/play. If you want to know more about Tony or Gary, just go to tonysakala.com or garyleland.com. Make sure and join us on the next episode, and thanks for listening. The Crypto Crypto Cousins podcast and information in the podcast are not intended as investment advice. Cryptocurrencies are risky. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Always seek professional advice before making any investment. Investing in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies may present tremendous risks. Please understand that you are using any and all information available on or through the Crypto Cousins podcast at your own risk.